Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Crimes, Killers, Cults, and Beer. Joining us today, once again on the show, is Jody Plauche. How's it going, Jody?
Going good. How about you?
I'm good. I've had a crazy day, but I'm here. So, what, you drinking anything tonight?
I got me a little vodka and water in my little purple sippy cup right here, little LSU sippy cup.
I got my, Bud Light in a shit brown bottle. So, anyway, yeah, tonight we're covering a case that Jody requested specifically because it happened in his hometown, which is Baton Rouge. I couldn't roll the R. I couldn't get it
uh,
right. Baton. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't.
I just stick with simple Baton Rouge. You know, I know a lot of when I watch sports games, they're like, "We're here live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana." It's like saying New Orleans. It's
Yeah,
New
it's
Orleans.
New Orleans. But we're covering serial killer Derrick Todd Lee. So, I had heard, I knew about him, but I hadn't really dug into it. Once I dug into it, holy shit, that guy was a piece of shit.
Uh, yes, that comes with the title serial killer. Just piece of shit is kind of just like given.
Yeah, true. Uh, um, but yeah, this guy was, yeah, why he's not more infamous than he is, I don't understand because he's definitely up there among the sickest, you know. So. So if you don't know, if you're listening and you don't know who Jody is, go back and listen to our episode on Gary Plauche, and then go listen to our episode interview with Jody Plauche, and that should get you caught up. Jody's father is a national hero, and I'm going to let him talk about that a little bit.
Just when I was 11 years old, or when I was 10 years old, I was put in my karate class, and my karate teacher sexually abused me for the next year. Eventually, he kidnapped me and took me from my house in Baton Rouge to Anaheim, California, where he was arrested. 2 weeks, I came home immediately. 2 weeks after I came home, police went out to California to bring his name was Jeff Doucette back to Baton Rouge. Well, program director at Channel 2 WBRZ here in Baton Rouge told my father, "Oh, they're bringing." So my dad, with that information, went to the Baton Rouge airport with a gun tucked in his boot, got on the payphone, called his best friend, and when they walked by, he turned and shot him point blank range. Pretty much, he officially died the next day, but he was dead before he hit the ground.
Yeah. Brain dead anyway, and then he died officially the next day.
Yeah, they kept him on life support to harvest his organs. And the happy ending to the story is my father never went to jail. He got arrested that night, and then he got out on bail on Monday morning, and he never served a day in prison. He got 5 years probation and 300 hours community service.
Yeah, and definitely a national hero if you ask me. Yeah,
Every Father's Day, my Twitter, Facebook blows up.
yeah, that was his birthday too, right?
His birthday he shares with the Marines. That's
Oh,
November
okay,
10th,
that
the day
that's
that Edmund Fitzgerald sank. But Father's Day, people, or March 16th, they'll say Gary Plauche Day, but then because that's the day he shot him. But on Father's Day, he gets probably 10 times as many people. Uh, Walked into the store where I work, and my book was on the counter. Why Gary? Why available at Amazon? Little cheap plug. But a
which we'll
guy
link.
looked at the title. A guy looked at the book and he goes, "I put that man as my screensaver every Father's Day because he just knew the story from the video.
That's awesome.
He didn't even know who he was talking to. He knew he was talking to me. He just made that comment and walked on out the store.
Well, the in the interview episode that we did with you, yeah, I didn't really get to tell you that came out a really funny way. I mean, I was aware. I mean, who hasn't heard of Gary Plauche's case? But I didn't really know. I knew the story, but I didn't know it by name. And I have a friend who's on another podcast, Mental Illness Theater.
Hello, I'm Mark.
I'm Gina.
And together we are Mental Illness Theater. Or at least we try.
We try to survive it.
We're the hosts of The Worst, a podcast where I deep dive horrible subjects and tell the story to Gina.
And I tell terrible, tasteless jokes to kind of break up the awful, soul-crushing details that you bring us.
I try and you try, and that's what makes it great.
Yeah, I mean, stop being upset. We are trying our best.
And honestly, we're weird people. We find this makes it a little more palatable to get through the horrible details of some of the worst true crime.
Yeah, because otherwise, I just want to take an ice pick to my own eardrums.
I can't do it anymore.
No.
So if you're the type of person who finds, Weekend at Bernie's the most hilarious movie ever, we might be up your alley.
Give us a try.
Absolutely. Just look for Mental Illness Theater on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or whatever platform you happen to use for podcasts. Thanks for listening, and bye.
Bye.
And we decided that we were going to, pick an episode for each other. And he picked Gary Plauche. I'm like, okay, Gary Plauche it is. I'm like, oh, okay, I remember this. So we do the episode, and you contacted me on Twitter saying you liked it, and that's how we wound up doing the interview. But yeah. I'm surprised because I listened to another interview with you today when I was on my way back from Fort Lauderdale. I got some shit wrong on my episode. No, it's a pretty critical detail. I said that he was that his job. I said that he was a liquor salesman, not a machinery salesman.
Well, he was a liquor salesman.
Oh.
He was a liquor salesman at one point. Yeah, he was a liquor salesman.
Okay.
Like I said, if it was something critical, I would be like, yo, look, because a lot of times people say, well, the parents split up, which they did. They separated for years, but they never got divorced. They were still married the day my father died. So they were never divorced. Went away to Biloxi for, several years, but she eventually moved back home before my dad even had a stroke to go to a nursing home. I mean, the three of us were living in the house together.
Yeah. Well, I was listening to that, and I was just like, wait a minute. So I didn't get it completely wrong. I got it half right.
No. Yeah, he was a liquor salesman, and then he left liquor sales to go into heavy equipment sales. Gotcha.
Okay, cool.
But never gave up the liquor.
Yeah. Oh, man. Anyway, that was awesome. I mean, the way that all came to be, basically, he's like, damn, I should have just done the Gary Plauche episode. Like, well, thank you, Mark. So, all right, well, let's dig into it. We're covering Derrick Todd Lee. He was known as the Baton Rouge serial killer, a very, very original name, if you ask me. I mean, that was just creativity that knows no ends when they came up with that one.
my little brother once had a goldfish he named Swimmy, so it's kind of like the same, just went with the obvious,
Well, it was obvious. It was originally when they first named it, it was the Ghost of Baton Rouge, and I think that's more ominous. But at least he's not Sean Mullins or the other Baton Rouge killer. But he was born November 5th, 1968 in Francisville, Louisiana, and he was the second of four kids. He was born to Samuel Ruth and Florence Lee. He raped and murdered at least 7 women from 92 to 2003 in the Baton Rouge area. But murder was, as usual, an escalation. He had been arrested for stalking women and watching them in their homes and everything, but part of the reason why he got away with it so long was because most of his victims were white, and police assumed that they were looking for a white man. Derrick Todd Lee was black. So, also, what made things difficult was that there was another serial killer operating in the same area at the same time, Sean Vincent Gillis. And farther south, Ron, the Potato Dominique, was operating around New Orleans. Sources for this one are World's Most Evil Serial Killers documentary, IMDb bio, and Wiki.
I graduated from Louisiana State University at this time in my life when Derrick Todd Lee started really scaring the town of Baton Rouge. I was living in Pennsylvania, so I was watching this from afar. I mean, because it was a national story. It was on MSNBC. It was on CNN. It was on Fox News. So, I think John Walsh came down and did America's Most Wanted. So I wasn't living here then, but I actually went to middle school with one of the victims.
Oh, really? That's crazy. Your middle school has seen a lot of action.
Oh, yeah, it sure has.
That's what I was kind of getting stuck on. It's just like, Jesus Christ, what happened to you? And then that and what else went on at that middle school, or what was tied to that middle school? Um,
Uh, want me to be honest? One of Shaq's really good friends was a teammate of mine at Kenilworth Middle School, and I mean he's one of Shaq's best friends and one of his, I guess, personal assistants. He's with Shaq everywhere Shaq goes.
well, I'm sure there's a lot more too.
At least that's something positive. At least that's something
Yeah,
positive.
yeah. Derrick Todd Lee had a type. He liked young white brunettes, and he wanted to control and dominate them before killing them. And one thing that sets Derrick Todd Lee apart from other serial killers is that he would stalk and study his victims for weeks at a time. Kind of like what BTK did with his trolling. Although he didn't make a huge spectacle about it like BTK did, like what he was doing was something special. Um, there was nothing special about Derrick Todd Lee, and that was just how he liked it. But his motives were different. It wasn't completely about sex. It wasn't completely about the thrill of the kill. His main motive was the fact that he absolutely hated women. So when he was a kid, his father was sent to prison for the attempted murder of his mother. And this may have actually been ground zero for his hatred for women. His child brain likely blamed his mother for his father going away. Possible.
Very possible.
Especially because he wasn't all that bright. But his mom remarried, and she and her new husband raised Derrick. He lived in a small trailer park in St. Francisville, and most of his family lived in that same trailer park. He had many siblings, aunts, and uncles, and he had a low IQ, around 70 to 75, and he didn't do well in school despite being in special ed classes. But we'll find out that he was extremely street smart.
Most of them are extremely street smart.
Yeah, and some of them are street smart and educated, and those are the really scary ones. But he became a loner at school, and he also sucked his thumb all the time and called his teacher Mama, and that made him the target of all the asshole school kids, of course.
As they tend to be
Yep.
at that age.
But Derrick was a kid that loved being outside, and he pretty much only came in at dinner time and then to bed. He liked to fish and play basketball, but then he started taking an interest in his female cousins. He'd watch them, and it creeped him out, and he would also watch them outside their windows as they got undressed. Ew. But
Well, a lot of people consider peeping toms kind of like a nuisance crime, but they don't realize that it could be something that leads to escalation, which is exactly what happened here.
right, I mean, and his family just pretty much, yeah, just he's just curious. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like well, and he also wasn't very nice to animals either. There was a there was some of that in the story as well. So,
Another telltale sign.
yep, Derrick would obsess. Oh wait, this was a little more than just a curiosity that came along with approaching puberty. Derrick would obsess over it, and before too long, he was doing it to other women in the trailer park as well. And he was only 6 or 7 at this point, so this isn't even puberty. This is several years before puberty. But so there was definitely something going on there. I mean, when I was 6 or 7 years old, girls, ew, you know.
Exactly.
But he was never abused as a child, and his family kind of brushed away his peeping as just him exploring. So he wasn't told that it was wrong to do this. So what could go wrong? He got used to doing things to women without their consent. And that's what it all boils down to. He was never told no by anybody. Yeah, and at 13, he started committing petty crimes like shoplifting, and he'd get caught, and nothing more than a slap on the wrist would happen. So this just contributed to his later belief that he was untouchable. Like I'm,
That sounds like the Louisiana justice system to me.
yeah. Oh, some of the police work toward the end of this is just like, what in the hell are you thinking? By 16, he had been arrested for burglary and assault, and he had pulled a knife on another teen, and he was charged for second-degree murder. He was violent, and he refused to follow the rules. And at age 17, he was arrested for peeping, and he had dropped out of school at that point, and he had had multiple arrests for voyeurism, burglary, and assault, but he never did any jail time at all. They just kept letting him go. Like, don't do that again.
It's frustrating, especially having worked for, a victim services. You can see how victims get frustrated.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like, what, you're going to let this fucker out again? So, at 20 years old, Derrick was married and he got a good job. He bought a nice little house with a picket fence, had 3 kids, and lived happily ever after. No.
No.
He had no intention of settling down. He did get married to a woman named Jacqueline Smith, and they had 3 kids. They did have 3 kids, and there was Derrick Todd Lee Jr., Doris, and Diedrich. Triple D's.
Glad to know his genes are still around.
In all of this, I couldn't find anything about his kids. About how they turned out or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be tough to know that your father's a serial killer, and then, I mean, even if they still love their father, I mean, I guess it was going to be sentenced to. Oh, well, I don't want to get ahead of the story. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but but you're right. I mean, there's a lot of things that can mess up a kid, and I would say finding out that your dad's a serial killer is probably at the top of the list.
That would be some type of neglect, I would think.
Yeah, just a little
A
bit.
serial killer.
But soon after the marriage, he was charged and found guilty of breaking in and entering into an abandoned building.
Let me guess. What were his consequences?
Nothing. No jail time. Just now, Derrick, don't you do that again.
All right, we know this is the 5th time you've done it. Don't do it again. You promised us last time. Don't break your promise.
Yeah. You can't break the Pinky Promise the Pinky Promise release program. Everybody knows that. But soon after the marriage, Jacqueline's father was killed in a plant explosion. There was a settlement, and she got lots of money from it. And Derrick just took the money and just blew it all on himself, buying multiple cars, jewelry, and fancy clothes. And he also used his wife's money to attract other women. Really nice guy, really class act.
And so far, we haven't even got to the bad stuff that he does.
No. Oh man, yeah, this is a long one. He got a job in construction and started, and at that time, as far as his kids were concerned, he was okay. I mean, he was good to his kids, but pretty much nobody else. He had a horrible temper, and Jacqueline was the recipient of it most of the time. Plus, he'd hit the bar scene. He's drinking, he's picking up women, and he's staying out all night and exploding on Jacqueline. And if she so much questioned, just asking where he was. So Jacqueline filed a restraining order, which Derrick ignored. And before too long, she was actually looking forward to the times when Derrick would disappear. And that's
Can't say I blame her.
I don't blame her either, but just get out, go, get away, girl. Go, leave his ass.
Get a divorce.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, all he's doing is peeping in people's windows and getting in an occasional fist fight. So, I mean, it's not like he's, the the Baton Rouge serial killer yet. And he was still peeping at this point, but that wasn't doing it for him anymore. And he was sleeping around, and that wasn't working for him either. This is when he decided that he needed to hurt women and even to kill them. But while that was back in the back of his mind, he met a woman named Cassandra while hanging out in the bars with his friends, and she quickly became his side piece. And she would be his girlfriend for a long time too.
Being local, I wish I knew what the bars were. I'd like to know, just out of my own curiosity, like what were the bars? Have I been to those bars? Odds are I've probably been to a few of them.
Probably. I mean, there's a bar in New Smyrna Beach that is the same bar that Eileen Wuornos would frequent. And they've even got a sign up at the table or the chair that she sat at, like Eileen Wuornos. This was Eileen Wuornos' seat because she was a regular there. I want to cover that case at that bar. I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be at the table, at the seat.
Yeah, exactly. With the camera right there where you can see that sign that says, if it's a table, it could just be a spot at the bar with a little sign hanging from the ceiling or something. I don't know. I've never been there. But in 1992, Derrick went to Zachary, which is about 16 miles outside of Baton Rouge. He wanted to go to a place where nobody knew his name. So he wasn't going to Cheers.
Right.
And it was a nicer area than the place where he had grown up. So, I mean, is St. Francisville, is that pretty much just like a ghetto town or something?
No, St. Francis is actually a really nice town, and Zachary's, they're right next to each other, so it's not really that far away. But I mean, it's got its nice little history. That's where the Myrtles plantation that's supposed to be haunted. That's in St. Francisville.
Oh wow! So like in any town, even a nice town is going to have a bad area in it, which would be the trailer park where,
yeah, Derrick Todd. Anywhere Derrick Todd Lee was in St. Francisville was a bad area.
Okay.
Because he was the bad element.
Yeah. But this is where his first murder was believed to have happened. And it was never proven, but everybody's pretty much positive that this was the work of Derrick Todd Lee, not Sean Mullis or anybody else. And it was because of the MO of the murder. 41-year-old Connie Warner lived in Zachary. She was white, had dark brown hair, and fair skin, and she was a single mother with a teenage daughter. And Connie was at home by herself one night, and her daughter was out, and she noticed that somebody was staring through the window, and she freaked out and called the police, and a report was filed. And, not a lot, just movies don't really scare me at all, but whenever there's a scene where the killer is looking through the window and everything, it doesn't really scare me, it just kind of creeps me out a little bit. It's just kind of like it's an invasion,
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, I probably shouldn't have been watching this movie, but it was based on a true story. A murderer out of Texarkana, Texas. It's called The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And there's a scene where this guy's just sitting watching TV, and he's in front of his window, and the killer goes up behind him and just shoots him in the back of the head. So I've always kind of been a little paranoid about that too, because I should have been watching that as a 8-year-old.
Yeah, I think mine might have been Salem's Lot, which did it to me, and I did watch that as a kid. That the scene where the werewolf is looking through the window. But later, August 22nd of 1992, Connie's daughter had left on vacation with her boyfriend, and Connie was once again alone. And this is speculation, but it does line up with Derrick's MO. He knocked, and Connie answered. Derrick pounced, knocked her to the ground, and began viciously beating her, ripping out her hair. And then he dragged her to the bedroom. And this is known because there was tufts of bloody hair in the living room, and there was a trail of blood. And there's actually pictures of this. There was a trail of blood from the living room into the bedroom, down the hall, into the kitchen, and then into the garage where he threw her into her own car. Connie vomited from the trauma in the car, and Derrick drove her away in his car. After she puked in her own car, he puts her into his car, which that doesn't make any sense to me. She puked in her car. If she pukes in yours, you're going to have to clean puke out of your car.
Yeah, that don't make sense to me either. I mean, but again, I'm pretty sure he's not thinking rationally at the time of,
No.
you know, brutal murder.
Hmm. But 48 hours later, her daughter returned home from vacation and found the scene. She called her grandfather. Grandfather called the police. The house was trashed, and the trail of blood made it easy to determine that the path that he had dragged Connie on through the house. A serious investigation began, but on the 26th, 4 days later, Hurricane Andrew hit Louisiana, and that washed away any evidence that may have been left behind outside of the house. And Hurricane Andrew did a number on Miami. I didn't realize it was, still that big of a monster when it hit Louisiana.
It was. I was living in Dallas at the time, but I mean, my brother and my dad. I mean, I've heard stories after Katrina and after some of the other hurricanes that we've had about how the neighborhood would cook and they, because nobody had power. So yeah, it was a bad one.
Um, September 22nd, Connie's body was found next to Capitol Lake, and it was determined that Connie had died due to a skull fracture. And I think I got that September 20th because they were saying that the hurricane. I got the date wrong apparently because the 28th is probably what it was. I have it as the 22nd. 22nd is the day that she was killed. But so on the 28th, Connie's body was found next to Capitol Lake, and it was determined that Connie had died due to a skull fracture. But because of Hurricane Andrew, there were no footprints, no fingerprints, or DNA. A big monster like that comes through and everything. It's just going to wash away pretty much everything.
And it did.
Yeah. How far away is Baton Rouge from the coast?
From my house to Biloxi is 2 hours. Um, my brother-in-law has a place in Pass Christian, and it's like about an hour and a half. So I mean, it's right there.
Okay, so it probably wasn't a Category 5 by the time it got to Baton Rouge. It might have been like a 3 or something like that because traveling across land, it's going to start getting weaker.
Right. Baton Rouge is in I don't want to say a great location, but when it comes to that, it's usually slowed down by the time it gets to Baton Rouge. It just knocks the power out. I mean, you don't have it like where roofs. I mean, you might get some, shingle damage, but for the most part, unless a tree falls on the house, you know, we're somewhat inlet that we're protected a little bit.
And you might get tornadoes after the fact.
Right.
But yeah, I've been through quite a few hurricanes living in Florida. Through 1992 and 1998, Derrick was arrested several times for peeping and burglary. And this time he did some jail time, but maybe a week at the most or whatever. He began losing jobs because his life was spinning out of control. His marriage was shot because of how horrible he treated Jacqueline, and okay, here we go. His relationship with Cassandra wasn't any better. He couldn't hold a job for any length of time, and he wasn't having success with the random ladies anymore. Poor guy.
That happens when the money dries up.
Yeah, right? Go in and make it rain, yeah, you're going to get some. You go in there and bum a drink off of somebody, you ain't getting anything.
That's right.
So he needed to kill. And more than likely for the second time, because I'm convinced that he did kill Connie. So, this change in demeanor coincided with the murder of Connie. And, we'll never know if he did it or not, but as far as I'm concerned, he done it.
Yeah, he probably did it.
Yeah. You don't just a week after a random person dies, you don't have like that big of a change and wind up adopting the same type of MO for your future killings.
Right. The pattern has been set.
Right. So in 1993, he returned to Zachary where he went to a graveyard, saw a car with fogged up windows. Two teenagers were in it making out. He opened the door and dragged them out, and he hit both of them with a machete. And they both lived, and a police officer found them and got them to the hospital. The girl who was attacked tried to help police with a sketch artist, and they came up with a sketch, and it did look like Derrick Todd Lee, all except for one thing. Take a guess.
They were looking for a white guy.
Yep, they had sketched a white man. In an unrelated story, a man named Derrick Todd Lee was arrested for peeping and given 2 years probation. I love this detective. Detective David McDavid.
Yep.
If your last name is McDavid, why would you name your son David?
I agree.
But David McDavid was a rock star. I'm not making fun of him. But just his name. But he was on the case now as well as and this attack as well as the Connie Warner case bugged him. And then once Derrick Todd Lee hit his stride with killing, Detective McDavid was positive that it was Derrick that was responsible for both Connie Warner's murder and the machete attack. In 1998, Derrick Todd Lee went back to Zachary again, and he spotted 28-year-old single mom of a 3-year-old. He spotted 28-year-old single mom of a 3-year-old boy, Randy Mibrewer.
That's who I went to middle school with.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And actually, I mean, it was we were in middle school, but we had our parents. Her group had our parents drop them off at Funfair Park. It's like an amusement park here in Baton Rouge. And then my group of friends, we all met up there together. And you know, I didn't find out till later that it was her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But she was white with brown hair, and he said all of the women that he killed were all gorgeous. I mean, he definitely had a type. It makes me kind of wonder what the women that he was hooking up with from the bar when he had that money looked like. Were they kind of not so good looking, or were they just attracted to all that money and he was able to get the good looking ones?
That's the question we'd all like to know. Like I said, I'd like to know what bars it was, and I'd like to know what type he was actually dating,
Yeah.
or not, or hooking up with.
Yeah, I want to see a picture of his wife, and I want to see a picture of his side piece. But he stalked her for weeks from her window, and even followed her when she would drive around town running her errands or taking her kid to preschool. But one night he decided that he finally had to go through with it, and he and Cassandra were out at the bar together, and they were arguing because Sandra was tired of Derrick flirting with other women right in front of her. Oh, God. So she cut their date short, and she left Derrick fuming at 10:30. And he went to a different bar, but that didn't calm him down. So he decided that it was go time. He went to Randy's house and watched her for hours. And she was watching a movie, and unbeknownst to her, she had a companion watching the movie. The face in the window. Wonder what she was watching. But she then put her son to bed, and then she went to bed. Derrick broke in, began viciously beating her, and he even knocked a contact lens out, and it fell on the floor. There was blood spatter all over her bed and headboard. Then he dragged her into his car and took her into the swamplands where he raped and killed her. Nobody had seen or heard anything, but the next morning a neighbor saw Randy's 3-year-old son outside wandering around alone. And she asked the boy where Randy was, and he just said, "Mommy gone." Yeah. And that's because most of his victims were mothers, like single mothers. So it's just, I'm surprised that he never went up, never went after any of the kids.
Yeah, that is a good question. I mean, is it you know more about serial killers and crimes than me? Is it that something that's common that they will get the whole family or the kid, or is it they go for their particular type and that's what they stick with?
Well, some of them have a type that they stick to, and even Derrick Todd Lee deviated from that, as we're going to find out later. But, but like, but but then there's other people like BTK that it didn't matter if he wanted to kill you, he was just going to kill you, and he did kill some kids as well.
Okay.
Um, but BTK was a freaking idiot, though. Um, the neighbor took the boy inside the house to see if Randy was there, and she wasn't, but she had found blood and evidence of a struggle. And she took the boy to her house, told her husband what happened, and they called the police. And when the police arrived, they went in and searched, and they found the horrific bedroom scene. They took samples of everything they could, and they had a suspect, Randy's ex-husband. Now, this guy wasn't he wasn't the brightest bulb in the box. I mean, he tried to cash in the life insurance policy, and Randy's body hadn't even been found yet. So,
Wow.
so that's the way to make
That
yourself.
definitely will put you. Yeah, that will definitely put you at the top of the list
Hmm.
of suspects.
Yeah, you have to have a body in order to cash in a life insurance policy. But while they were wasting their time with Randy's ex, Derrick Todd Lee was gearing up for a repeat performance. Detective McDavid was convinced that this was Derrick Todd Lee, and he lived near Randy. And McDavid questioned him. I wonder if you ever crossed paths with Derrick.
Again, that's very possible, but at the time that he was actively in this, I guess, serial killer, whatever hunger that it is that they have.
Well, yeah,
I was
you
in
were
the
in
midst of it.
Pennsylvania, but I mean, I wonder if at some point in your life you crossed paths with him. You
No,
probably did.
I'd have to look at what year was he born?
68.
Okay, so he'd have been 4 years older than me, so we probably wouldn't have played against each other in sports or anything like that had he played sports. But so it's probably more than unlikely that we cross paths.
Mm. Well, I crossed paths with one of Louisiana's worst, but the Potato Man. That's just
Yeah.
my name for him because he looks like a potato. But um, he, Derek lived near Randy, and McDavid questioned him, and he agreed to let him search his home, although he changed his mind right after. And McDavid says in an interview that he was going toward a closet, and that's when Derek Todd Lee told him to get the hell out. Like, permission revoked. So he's like, I wonder if there was something in there. Honestly, I don't think there was. I think he was just getting creeped out because the police were in his house. Because when
Right.
later on, obviously they're going to search his home, and they didn't find anything. So I don't think he was a trophy collector. But Randy's
See,
case went,
I thought I saw where he was a trophy collector, but I could be wrong.
nah, he at least not in anything that I found. Um, there's only a small handful of podcast episodes about this guy. There's not very many, so I'm glad that you suggested this one to me because I like the ones that every single podcast out there does. I like doing the ones that not every single podcast has done. So, but I don't know why this one doesn't get as much recognition as others do because it's every bit as. I mean, this guy's worse than some of the heavy hitters.
Right.
Randy's case went cold because there was no body. And David went back to the woman who was attacked in the graveyard and did a photo lineup. And she picked uh, Derrick Todd Lee out without hesitation. And he went to he went to the judge to get an arrest warrant for him, but the statute of limitations had run out. I think it was 5 years, and this had been like 6. I don't think there should be a statute of limitations on a freaking machete attack, you know?
Right. I wonder how they came up with 5 years. It's like, okay, you know what? Knife, 5 years. I will the machete. 5 years seems reasonable for the statute of limitation.
Yeah. It was a freaking machete. I mean, damn, the way that some of these cops worked. Well, David McDavid was working this case, but if the Baton Rouge police had been working on this, they might have thought that it was a freaking Mexican cartel or something because it was a machete attack.
Right.
If he had killed Connie, which he did in my opinion, then he's done this and gotten away with it twice now, and he had just begun at that point, and he's got to be feeling really good about the fact that they're looking at somebody else for his murder, the ex-husband of Randy.
Right. But I imagine with David McDavid going and questioning, that probably made him nervous as well, or maybe it made him more cautious in the future not to leave any evidence. He left plenty of evidence. I'm just saying his
Right.
evidence.
But the fact that well, we'll get there. There's so much that the law enforcement got wrong in this one.
Oh yeah.
I mean it baffles me. I thought about making a Dick Darwin segment for this, but even Dick Darwin would be shaking his head at this one. Dick Darwin is my spoof of the Dallas Police Department. He thought
Okay.
the JFK assassination was a suicide. So, in June of 1999, Derrick began stalking a 36-year-old woman named Colette Walker. This was in his hometown of St. Francisville. He was obsessed with her, and he walked up to her in the parking lot of her apartment. And he began asking her a bunch of questions, like, "You got a boyfriend? Want to go for a ride? Want to go for a ride in my pimpmobile over here? Want to go get a drink with me?" And she just said, "Ew," and pushed past him and made it into her apartment. But Derrick wasn't finished. And 2 days later, he was waiting for her when she opened the door to her apartment, he rushed up and pushed her inside and locked the door. He started looking around her apartment, asking about pictures that she had and picking things up. He was giving himself a guided tour of her place. And then he asked her out again. And once again, she said no. She said he was crazy. And Derrick said, "Well, if I was crazy, I could rape you right here and nobody would know." He then wrote down his phone number on a piece of paper and told her to call him.
So we got fingerprints and a phone number.
Yeah. Well, his fingerprints were already on file, but from all the arrests maybe they didn't fingerprint him. All the arrests that he had, like, prior to all this, maybe they didn't fingerprint him. Maybe it was never even processed. Who knows? That's got to be the case. The people that he left in the house, he had to have touched things in the house. So, they either didn't have his fingerprints on record or they just, didn't think about dusting for fingerprints. Colette reported him to the police, and that got him another 2 years of probation. Shame on you. You don't break into somebody's house and ask them out on a date.
Were you able to find out whether or not he was keeping up with his probation duties, reporting to his probation officer and that kind of thing?
Nothing was mentioned, so I'm guessing that there probably was. Although, well, at one point, actually we're about to get to it right now. He did violate his probation, and that got him that got him some prison time. So in February of 2000, Derrick was at a bar again with Cassandra, and once again she got mad at him for flirting with other women and left. Derrick followed her out and brutally attacked her in the parking lot. And she pressed charges, and for violating probation, he spent a year in prison this time. Actual prison. Although, they didn't take a DNA sample from him.
Mm. Was that even practiced commonly back then?
Yeah, this was 2000. DNA was a big thing now at this point. And if you're sent to prison, I mean, if you're sent to prison, they take a, if you're put in prison for a felony, they're taking DNA, regardless. It doesn't matter what you did. So, I mean, and I think that was the case even back in 2000.
But I don't think if you're just looking through someone's window, they're going to take your DNA. Even if you just get in a fight with somebody, I don't think they would take your DNA. But I wouldn't know that.
But this is a brutal attack on a woman, which was also a parole violation or a probation violation. So yeah, they would. I think that if it happened now, they'd be taking the DNA. So I don't know about in 2000, but the way that they talked about it in the documentary that I watched, it kind of made it like it seemed like it was an oversight. They just forgot to do it. So it seemed like it was in practice. They just dropped the ball.
Again, that's Louisiana for you.
In September 2001, he had been stalking 40-year-old Gina Wilson Green, and she had even told her mother several days prior to her murder that she thought that somebody was watching her. And September 23rd, Derrick breaks into her house, or he tried to break out into, damn it. He tried to break into her house, but he set off an alarm. So he waited until Gina calmed down and went back to bed. And at this point, it was early in the morning, before he felt comfortable doing in there. So this time he broke into the house without setting off the alarm. He strangled and beat and raped her. And then he staged her in a bed, and she wouldn't be found until 2 days later when a coworker showed up at her house to check on her because she hadn't come to work. He laid low for a few months and then went to Stanford Avenue in Baton Rouge.
I know where that's at.
What is that? Because is that like part of LSU?
It's right off of LSU's campus by the LSU Lakes is what they're called. And it's basically if you got into the lake on LSU's campus and paddled across it, that would take you to Stanford. Because LSU was modeled, I think, when they were, I forget exactly how it goes, but they hired the same architectural firm as Stanford University did. So a lot of the buildings look similar to Stanford University. And so Stanford Avenue got the name, I guess it's a tribute to Leland Stanford.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Detective McDavid had been following these murders knowing full well that it was Derrick Todd Lee. And these murders in Zachary happened near where he lived. And when Gina was killed, McDavid went to the Baton Rouge police with his suspicions, but they blew him off saying that her murder was a one-off. Mr. Puke has got to be the luckiest serial killer of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he just time after time after time, he's just getting break after break after break, and it's just like, yeah, luck. So, in January of 2002, he got a good job at a chemical plant in Baton Rouge that he would keep for a while. 2 whole weeks.
Oh, good job.
Yeah. But on January 14th of 2002, he set his sights on 21-year-old LSU student Geraldine DeSoto. And this is where the phone murders started. He knocked on the door asking if he could use her phone, and she let him in, and she handed him one. And he hit her with it so hard that she got a skull fracture from it. So this is either one of those old Nokia cell phones, or it's a wall mounted phone. Yeah, a landline.
Or it could have been one of the, cordless phones. Remember back in the day, you had the cordless one you could walk around the house. It could have been, one of those.
Yeah. But those old Nokia cell phones, I mean, you could be a serial killer with that as your weapon. Those things are indestructible. But she ran into her bedroom looking for her husband's gun. She found it and she aimed it at Derrick and pulled the trigger, but the gun wasn't loaded. And she tried to beat him with the gun, but he overpowered her and he stabbed her repeatedly. And she was later found by her husband, and there had been a number of calls to the police because they had been fighting a lot and he had gotten, rough with her. So her husband became the prime suspect. Prime suspect. Mushmouth tonight. But Baton Rouge police still didn't make the connection that there was a serial killer on the loose, but Detective McDavid knew. A connection in all these victims, all of them, was made. They were all successful women going places. They're all gorgeous, and none of them would ever give Derrick the time of day. And Derrick believed that these women were supposed to be subservient, seen and not heard, basically indentured servants and sex objects. So in his own way, he was punishing them for being successful. How dare they? Several months went by, and on May 31st of 2002, Derrick attacked and murdered 22-year-old Charlotte Murray Pace. And she had just graduated from LSU and was planning on moving to Atlanta to start her career. Why Atlanta? I don't know. I hate that city.
a lot of LSU graduates either go to Houston, Atlanta, or Dallas. I mean, that's kind of like they call it brain drain. They graduate from LSU and then boom, they go to Atlanta because that's where it's a bigger town, bigger jobs.
I don't know. The reason I don't like Atlanta is just because I hate driving through there. It is the worst. Atlanta, Chicago, New York, California. Those are the worst. Dallas is second tier, in my opinion.
Dallas is pretty good now if you're willing to take the tollways. There's a tollway everywhere you go in Dallas.
Oh, okay. I haven't been to Texas in a while. But Derrick had got fired from yet another job, and she was going to pay for it. And she was found dead in her apartment by her roommate. And he had learned her routine and finally knocked on the door, asked her to use the phone, and like Gina, she let him in, handed it to him, and he hit her with it. She broke away from her, but he pulled out a screwdriver and started stabbing her with it. And then he raped her while stabbing her at the same time. Ugh. And how in the hell am I finding all the ones that do that? Angus Sinclair did it a while back. Then Pans around, then Peter Curtin, and now Derrick Todd Lee. Seems like if somebody rapes, if a man rapes a woman and is killing her at the same time, I'm gonna wind up finding him on a freaking episode that I cover. But not looking for it, of course. But damn it, that's just you cannot you can't be more depraved than that, in my opinion. To be raping somebody and stabbing somebody or strangling somebody or whatever at the same time. It doesn't get any worse than that, I don't think.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
So by the time he was done, she had been stabbed 83 times and she also had multiple defensive wounds. So she was fighting this fucker. Police collected the DNA and Derrick had left lots of it. The problem was they didn't have his DNA on file. So finally, the Baton Rouge police started believing that these murders were connected because Charlotte lived just a few doors down from Gina. In July of 2002, Derrick Todd Lee had been stalking 44-year-old Pamela Kennemore. She had an antique shop, and on July 12th, he followed her home, and she had accidentally left the key in the lock on her door. And Derrick let himself in and began looking for her. And she had apparently started a bath like as soon as she got home, and that's where Derrick Todd Lee found her. Um, he barged into the bathroom, scooped her out of the tub, threw her on the floor, and started pummeling her with his fists. He then dragged her down the hallway, and Pamela fought him, and she even drew blood from him, but he kept beating her until she went unconscious. He then dragged her back to his truck and threw her in the passenger seat and took off. I mean, and this is, I'm assuming that it's either dusk or maybe even still daylight at this point. Yeah, the guy's got some serious balls, that's for sure.
I mean, just walking through the front, just straight up.
Yeah. So, and then just throwing her in the truck and everything. She's probably screaming, and nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything. It's just crazy to me, but especially down. Oh, yeah, she was on Stanford Road, right? Yeah.
No, Pam Kennemore was in a neighborhood. I think it's called Kensington. I could
Oh,
be
okay.
wrong, but yeah. I mean, like I said yesterday, my daily way home from work. Sometimes cut through that neighborhood, and it's like literally the fifth house on the right when you neighborhood, and it's you know 5 houses off. I mean, it's not even a quarter of a mile from a major highway, US 61 airline highway here in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
So it was a very populated.
Yeah. So he drove for about an hour down Airline Highway, and this isn't like a highway. This is like a highway with traffic lights. Am I correct?
Yes,
Airline Highway.
yes.
Okay.
Airline highway has traffic lights.
Okay. I was trying to piece together. I don't know if I've been on Airline Highway or not, but a woman noticed that he was swerving as he drove, and once he stopped at a stoplight, um, Pamela was awake, and she looked out the back window of the truck, and this woman saw her, and she said that there was something not right about her. So she called the police department, told them about what happened along with a description of the truck and a partial license plate number. But the police weren't able to find him. And the main reason the police weren't able to find him is because Derrick Todd Lee, like right after that, got off at an exit and drove underneath I'm not going to even try to pronounce the name of it, Basin Bridge. Jody?
Atchafalaya Basin Bridge.
Yeah, that's it. We have names like that in Florida too, but I know them. You might not know them. I do. You know, you the stuff in Louisiana. I don't know. I'm not even gonna try.
I'll tell you, it's kind of a funny story, but I mean, it's not really. But I was working for my brother-in-law job at Hot Shot, and I was going to Orange, Texas, and all of a sudden I'm on the Atchafalaya Bridge, right there at Whiskey Bay, where his body was found,
Right.
and my alternator went out on my car. So I coasted. I got off the interstate, and I coasted down to the bottom. Well, it's right there on a river. I think it might be the Chapalaya River, but anyway, Whiskey Bay. Well, I was down there, and the sun was setting, it was getting dusk, and I said, "F this shit," and I walked up to the interstate on the ramp, and I called my little brother who had a trailer. I was like, "Come get me, my car broke down." I said, "Have Daddy follow you. That way, I Daddy's car, and Daddy can just ride back home with you." And so he said, "Okay." So him and my dad come. We load my car up on the trailer. I get in Daddy's car, and I'm heading to Orange, Texas, because I had to deliver his package. Well, I called my brother a few minutes later, and I said, he goes, "I can't talk to you right now. I'm doing another one." I was like, "What?" He goes, "I'll just call you back." So as he was finishing strapping my car down, this female was heading the direction. Her alternator went out. She got out at the same exit, and my little brother walked up to her, handed him his driver's license, and said, "Look, I have a trailer and bring you to Baton Rouge and drop it off your car off at a mechanic shop." He goes, "Call whoever you need to call," because he gave her the license, to verify or give them my information so you feel comfortable, or you can sit out here at the second most popular serial killing body dump site in America, behind the Green River. And that girl, no hesitation, jumped in the car with my brother and my dad. And as they're heading down back to Baton Rouge, my dad looks over at the girl and goes, "I'm a murderer."
What did she do?
Then my dad had explained the story to her, but she's probably bragging to people on TikTok that she rode in the car with Jody Plauche when the car broke down, and nobody believes her. I'm sure.
That is awesome.
But I'm gonna tell you right now, that was a spooky ass spot to be in the middle.
Oh,
And I went and stood by that interstate for an hour. Stood by that interstate, but I was in a way where I was on a ramp, so I wouldn't have gotten hit by a car.
right.
But I'm telling you, my little brother told me, said, "Look, my brother's 200 will be down here," and so she jumped in that car with my dad and my brother, and then she got to find out who she was riding with.
That's hilarious. I mean, but I'm sure that Mullins probably dumped some bodies there too.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's the second most popular
Yeah.
body site.
I don't think Ron Dominique did, but you probably have a lot of one-off murders that get dumped there too, huh?
Yeah, there was another one. A girl was on her bike, and some guy went and I guess hit her over the head, threw her, and dumped her by Whiskey Bay as well. I forget her name. I should remember.
Man, that's a hilarious story though. Kind of reminded me. I mean, not literally, but not because it's exactly the same. But that old joke. I picked up a hitchhiker. Hitchhiker says, "Oh, taking a pretty big risk picking me up. What if I turn out to be a serial killer?" And then the driver says, "Nah, I ain't worried about it. The chances of there being two serial killers in one car is astronomical."
Right.
It just reminded me of that when you were telling it.
Let me tell you another one off. I mean, this is, the violence is so I had to go pick this guy up. I had to go about 3 hours away to Port Fourchon because he was going to go get on a boat to go offshore for a couple weeks. And I'm sitting there riding in the car with him, and he's telling me he's just gotten out of jail. I was like, "Oh, really? Where he's at? Selling drugs?" And I'm like, "Really? How does, one become a drug dealer?" I was like, "I mean, how does?" And he goes, "Well, it's kind of the family business." And the guy I went and picked up, his name was Dean Seal, Barry Seal's son. And so I called my little brother and I said, "Dude, you're not going to believe this shit." I said, "But Gary Plauche's son and Barry Seal's son are riding in the same car." And my little brother goes, "You're not going to believe this shit. I'm at the light at Winburn and Airline. That's where Barry got shot." My brother was literally sitting at the light where Barry got shot when I called him with me and Barry's son in the car.
Oh God.
And those who don't know who Barry Seal is, look him up too. His story is, they did a thing like the top 5 crimes in the history of Baton Rouge. And one was Lee, one was my dad, one was Barry, the governor being shot, Huey Long being shot was another one. I forget what the 5th one was, but
Mullins
anyway,
didn't even make the cut?
I think he may have been included with Derrick Todd Lee. It may have been like the Baton Rouge serial killers.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking. I'm going to watch this here in a little while. I just found out about it. I'm sure I read it before, but I was like, okay, now I really got to watch it. Did you watch Butchers of the Bayou on Hulu whenever you were doing your research?
It came up, it came up
A&E.
It came up, but I found something I liked better.
Okay, well, I'm going to check this out. I got it pulled up on my TV right now.
Yeah, because they had Mullins, they had Derrick Todd Lee, and they had Ron Dominique on there. I think Ron Dominique was on there. But
let me see.
No, wait, I remember what it was. I remember what it was. Why I didn't use that one. It's because there was like 3 or 4 hour-long episodes on Derrick Todd Lee, and I just didn't have time to go through all of that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. This was a 4-part documentary A&E did about Derrick Todd Lee.
And then the last one is Mullins as kind of like a footnote. Oh, here's the other guy. So.
I think I'm looking at this one. It says Sean Vincent Gillis. Oh,
Gillis. I was saying Mullins. I don't know. Oh, Mullins, California. Never. Duh.
That's definitely something I'm gonna check out. So for your listeners out there, if you're like this podcast, you got more things you can go down that old rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had gotten started on these notes sooner. If I had, I would have used that one. I had a really busy week this week with podcast stuff. I mean, I've recorded, this is the fourth episode I've recorded in 7 days. And so I wasn't able to get started on the notes until yesterday, and I finished them up today, like about 2 hours before we started recording. So I just didn't have time to go all exhausted. But what I got an awful lot out of. So I mean, I'm happy with it.
You did your homework. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the references that you used, your sources.
All right, I'll message them to you once I get
Okay.
back. Yeah, once we get done. But anyway, hashtag but I digress. But goddamn, that was one of the funnest digressions we've ever had on this show. That's those two those two stories that you told were great. I loved it. So anyway, he dragged Pamela on onto the ground out of the truck, and he raped her. He cut her throat, and then he watched her die, and then he covered her with leaves, and then took off. And she was found 4 days later by fishermen, and this solidified it. Baton Rouge had a serial killer, and the women there were terrified, especially the ones around LSU, and lots of gun retailers were selling out of product, like guns and ammo. Um, Pamela's Pamela's family.
Oh,
What's up?
no, I was to say that beer got you. That beer came back and bit you in the throat. But I do know this. I knew sales of pepper spray and mace went up for
Yeah,
sure.
that too,
Um,
and tasers.
Everyone was on high alert. They're talking about, and I mean, I recommend this since I did safety education for years at Victim Services in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. I mean, if you are gonna, go walk around lakes, LSU has beautiful lakes. You can go walk around them. Don't wear headphones. Be aware of your surroundings. Travel in packs because people who victimize other people are looking for people who are easy targets. I'm not. I don't even want to say what I'm about to say because it's terrible. But they look for keys in the door. They look for
Hmm.
open windows. If you got a little yappy dog, it's like. But if you got a Rottweiler, it's going to make them not want to break into your house. So try not to make yourself an easy target and be aware of your surroundings. Don't cover your ears
Right.
and go in groups.
I mean, my hearing is bad. And when I'm out and about, especially if I'm, and I'm 6'4", 230. Um, and I will, even then, it's just like because my hearing is diminished, I'm constantly looking all around me and everything because it's like if I'm out by myself at night or whatever, especially like at a truck stop or something like that, my head is on a swivel all the time at all times. I'm not sitting there in my phone as I'm walking or anything like that. I'm completely aware of my surroundings. Not because I think I might get jumped or whatever, but that is a possibility. But, there could be a car coming that I might get squashed by or something, you know?
I tell this story in my book. All right. So I was talking to my friend, Hav, and he used to be the GM at the Hooters right up the street. And I was telling him how it bothers me that when the girls leave their shift at night, they're screwing around on their phone. They're not paying attention to their surroundings. They're counting their money as they're walking to the car.
Hmm.
And I told him, I was like, you need to talk to them and tell them to, be aware. And so he, one time told the bartender, and you'll never get me or something like that. Cause he said he was surprising girls. He would follow them out. And then when they would go to open their car, he'd shut the door and she'd say, oh, you'll never get me. And so one night he went, got her keys out of her purse in the back, opened her door. And then when she went to leave, he hid in the back seat and wasn't even paying attention. She didn't even notice the guy, squatting down. And when she started the car, he was like, gotcha. And I mean, you just got to be aware of your surroundings. You got to pay attention. That's very important.
Definitely. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's you have to do that anyway, but especially if your hearing is diminished.
Hmm. That's why you don't wear the earphones, so you can hear if someone comes up on you.
Right. So Pamela's family was proactive, and they bought billboards offering $75,000 for information leading to Derrick Todd Lee's arrest. So DNA from Charlotte and Gina matched the DNA collected from Pamela. Um, a multi-agency task force was set up to try to get this guy, and it included the Baton Rouge Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the state police, and even members from other parishes nearby, including Detective David McDavid from Zachary. And he shared all of his research with the task force, and he told them, it's like, this is the guy. But the task force had their eye on somebody else, and because witnesses near the homes of Charlotte and Gina had seen a white man in a white pickup truck. Nope, definitely not a black man. Serial killers only kill within their own race. Everybody knows that. And because of that, the blood of two more women is on their hands just because of their good old boy mentality. You know, if they had just listened to McDavid, they could have ordered a DNA test on Derrick Todd Lee, and that would have been it. So.
You know who made up one of the sheriff's task force? Fortunately, 2 weeks ago we had to bury him, but the two cops in the video with my dad, the shooting, the one that was walking next to my karate teacher, he's the one that we had to bury. His name was Bud Connor. And though they were on one of the task force, and I have another really good friend of mine. Her husband was also on the task force. And when I was in Pennsylvania, I'd follow along on what was the court TV message board, and her screen name was Task Force Wife, and that's how I knew it was her. And so we made that connection.
Oh, because of this case.
Yes, on a message, miles away from each other.
Yeah, that's cool.
So even though I was in Pennsylvania, my point is it was hitting close to home with me. I mean, here you got, the police officers I know on a task force. He killed a middle school classmate. Not to mention, I ride by Pam Kilmore's house almost every day. So, I mean, this was something that was affecting my friends because they were talking about it. We even had my friend who was a bartender. She nicknamed one of her regulars, or a friend of ours nicknamed one of her regulars a serial killer because she got drunk one night and they were looking for a creepy white guy in a white truck, and he checked all the boxes, and she called the hotline and was like, "Hey, looking at this guy." I mean, he was harmless. He just had a crush on the bartender, but he fit the profile.
Right. And we're going to get to that too. So Derrick began stalking women in Lafayette, which was 55 miles away from Baton Rouge. Now, July 9th, 2002, this is when he makes his first mistake. Derrick Todd Lee attacked Diane Alexander at home in, was it Breaux Bridge? Breaux Bridge, which is 35 miles from Baton Rouge. He had knocked on the door and asked if he could use the phone, and this is where the phone murders started because there were a couple of them. And he attacked her, and he tried to he attacked her with the phone, and he beat her with it, and he tried to rape her, and he tried to strangle her, but luckily for her, her son pulled up at that point, and Derrick hauled ass. 6 days later, she reported the attack and gave a full detailed description of Derrick Todd Lee. Now, the description looked like Derrick Todd Lee, of course, a black man. But the task force ruled it off as a one-off attack because their suspect was white. You can't help but laugh. They swabbed 1,200 white men in white pickup trucks for DNA, and of course that came up with nothing.
You know what it came up with? It came up with a lot of people finding out that their DNA isn't what their heritage isn't what they thought it was.
Yeah. So the kill The killer at that point was being called the Ghost of Baton Rouge. And what color are ghosts? White! Everybody knows that. Nobody said that. I said that. So, on November of 2002, the body of Trenisha Colum was found in the woods outside of Lafayette. And she was visiting her mother's grave when Derrick Todd Lee saw her, and he beat her, and he bashed her head on a tree, and he raped her.
This was his mistake.
Yeah, this was his first major mistake.
This was his biggest mistake.
Right.
I'll tell you why. I've been holding off on this. I'm gonna tell you why here in a minute.
Okay. Well, his mistake with Diane Alexander was he didn't case her the way he had cased everybody else previously. If he had, he would have known that she had an adult son that could probably kick his ass. But, so first they were trying to dismiss this one as another one-off murder, but then the DNA matched the DNA found on the other victims. But Trenisha was black.
That's who's a lawyer here. I've been waiting on this. My friend who was a lawyer in Baton Rouge, as soon as she showed up, he was like, they're looking for a black guy. And that's when it changed. That's probably when your boy David McDavid got his cred, and they're like, you know what? Let's maybe we'll look into this.
Yeah, I'm getting to that too. And I have some speculation about how he could have handled himself, although he's a professional. So, March 3rd of 2003, 26-year-old Carrie Yoder was kidnapped from her Baton Rouge apartment. She was found 10 days later in Whiskey Bay, and this is where near where Pamela Kennemore was found. This is also the same place that some mystic force kills alternators randomly.
On the same night.
On the same night. But she had been beaten and raped, and she was also a white brunette. And the DNA linked her to the killings as well. So
let me ask you this question, because I don't know. I got to ask you this.
Okay.
They can't determine race, or they couldn't back then?
I'm getting to
by
that.
DNA?
I'm getting to that right now. A genetics expert was called in to test the DNA, and when it was analyzed, the task force was shocked to find out, wait for it, almost there,
the ghost
of Baton Rouge was a black man. So they put all the pieces together and realized that the man who Diane Alexander had described, as well as the machete victim, was in fact Derrick Todd Lee. And billboards with that composite, they went up all over Baton Rouge. And the press press conference, the police held a press conference with egg on their faces. Yeah, we told you it was a white man, but he's black.
And I do want to say one thing, that, I mean, we are, trying to have a good time talking to this and be entertaining. We are not laughing at the women who were killed. We are laughing at the ineptitude of the Baton Rouge Police Department. I mean, because they've been saying it's a white guy all along, a white truck guy in a white truck, and they were even, if they would have opened their eyes just a little bit and opened it, and tested that DNA earlier, they would have found these things out. So that's what we're kind of laughing at. We're not laughing at the dead women.
No, I would never do that. And I've said it before.
Well, I've seen, people get bent out of shape, and I just wanted to qualify that, just so, in case they did, that's not what we're laughing at.
I said on my last episode, Bernie Teed, which it's my current episode that's up now. Well, not now if they're listening to this, because that means the previous one. Hey, look, there's a kitty cat.
Oh yeah, she's been here the whole time.
But there's only been 2 victims that I made fun of, and that was because they were both pieces of shit. And that was Henry Lee Lucas's mother. I'm not saying that she deserved to die, but she was a piece of shit. And the other is Dee Dee Blanchard, Gypsy Rose Blanchard's mother, who, if you're not familiar with that story, it's one of my early episodes. Go check it out. That woman deserved to die, and her daughter Gypsy did not. She should have never been sent to prison. Although she's being released any day now, literally. So,
I'll
but
have to go check that episode out.
yeah, that's a crazy case. And when you start looking into it, you'll probably be like, okay, I remember that. But I can imagine Detective McDavid walking around the task force members, not saying a word, just making eye contact and just walking away. Mm-hmm. Yep. Kind of like a mic drop without a mic.
Well, that's when you don't like to be right. That's when you don't like to be like, I told you so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here you've got an entire task force of multiple law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, all dismissing what he's saying. And he was right.
The whole time.
The whole time. So it's just, I applaud this guy. I'd love to get him on the show. Speaking of which, so in May of 2003, Detective McDavid showed up at DTL's house, Derrick Todd Lee's house, with a court order for Derrick's DNA. 3 weeks later, it was confirmed that the ghost of Baton Rouge was in fact Derrick Todd Lee. But once again, David McDavid was validated. So they went to arrest Derrick, only to find that the ghost had ghosted.
I got a story for this one too. It affected a friend of mine.
Okay, well, give me 1 second. He and his family had taken off to Atlanta right after the DNA was taken. All right, let's hear the story.
All right, so before they knew where Derrick Todd Lee was, they knew who he was, and they knew who they were looking for. They were looking for, how tall was he?
Derrick?
Did you,
God, I didn't put that in the notes. They did say it. I think he was like 5'10", but no. He was
I
like
think
5.
he was bigger than that.
Hold on, let's find out because I'm curious because I don't remember. I've been through so many cases over the past week and everything. Like they're all kind of get jumbled. Hold on. How tall was Derrick Todd Lee? 5'10".
That's it?
Yep.
I thought he was bigger than that. All right, so anyway, friend of mine, he used to play for the Buffalo Bills, and he played, I want to say, 1 year with the Minnesota Vikings. And around that time, he was driving from up north, from either Buffalo or Minnesota down and to Nashville. And he got him a room in Nashville, and somebody saw him. And this is when the APB was out for Derrick Todd Lee, and he's a, big black guy who would look intimidating. And so someone at the hotel that he was staying at called and said, hey, look, we got a potential suspect. And the police went busting in his room, threw him to the ground, and detained him until he realized he was Derrick Todd Lee. He told me that.
I think I remember hearing about that. Serious.
He told me that was one of the scariest moments of his life.
I bet. I mean, I think I remember hearing about that because, this was 2003. The Bills.
His last year was he got cut in 2001. And I'm not going to say what team he was with at that point because I don't want to say his name, but I don't think he would care one way or the other. But it's just the fact.
So he wasn't playing at the time.
At the time, no.
Oh, okay, okay. Then I didn't hear about it. It sounded familiar. I don't know. Yeah,
But then again, that's another connection. I mean, so that's why I kind of recommended this because it being so close to home. I mean, even just closer home when your friend's being detained as a suspect.
Right. I mean, there's definitely a lot here, and I love your insight on the case being here. Might have you back on when we cover Gillis. Okay. May 26, 2003. A warrant was issued for Derrick Todd Lee, and the information was sent out nationwide. And your old friend John Walsh profiled him as the #3 killer from 2002 on America's Most Wanted.
We got to get this scumbag. My John Walsh impersonation.
Yeah, that was great. If you haven't listened to the Jody Plauche interview yet, he does a pretty good Barack Obama as well.
Oh, what we're looking for a black man. That black man might look like me. There's my Barack Obama.
I'm going to give the accents a little. I can usually do a pretty decent Barack Obama, but the past couple times that I've tried an accent, I've failed horribly. So I'm just not let the accent sit for a little while unless I'm doing like one of my characters or something like that.
Back when I had an office job when I was in Pennsylvania, I would have like Ozzy Osbourne day where I would just talk like Ozzy Osbourne all day long. I can't get up, get me so late.
Karen!
Get these. I'm the Prince of Darkness. I don't need bubbles.
I'm the Prince of Darkness. I don't need.
If you've ever seen that, go to YouTube where like literally he's watching the band introduce like how he's going to come out on stage, and they got bubbles flying around, and Ozzy looks at Sharon and is like, "I'm Prince of fucking Darkness. I don't need bubbles."
Oh God. That's hilarious. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, it's great.
So, Derrick told his wife that the police were after him, but he didn't do it. Wasn't me.
Yeah, I didn't leave all that DNA all over the place.
Wasn't me. But when she saw the America's Most Wanted episode, she contacted the FBI, and she told them that he was working on a motel, working at a motel, but he hadn't told her which one. So the police were able to track him down, and he was arrested without incident. He was given up by his own wife, and I hope that the rest of her life is amazing. I really do. I hope she just has a great life, and if you have any details about that says otherwise, I don't want to hear it. I want to imagine that she like won the lottery and found herself a nice man, and they've lived happily ever after. That's and he'd be probably a little bit, I don't know how old she was, but he'd be, Derrick Todd Lee was a little bit older than we are. He was born in 68. I was born in 73.
I'm 72.
Yeah, so yeah, but I'm just hoping that the rest of her life was great because, her time with him was hell. So, so, during the interrogations, he said he was remorseful and he was ready for death, but he never admitted to being a serial killer.
Did you ever see the footage of him being returned back to Baton Rouge?
No. Your dad wasn't there, obviously.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. They didn't take him to the airport. They took the paddy wagon out to the tarmac and loaded him, and they didn't walk him through the terminal. they learned their lesson.
We covered what the hell was his name? Reese. Can't remember. Texas. William Reese. When he was being extradited either from Oklahoma to Texas or from Texas to Oklahoma, one or the other, I can't remember. The state where he was going to, they met the state where he was coming from at the location where he killed one of his victims. How boss is that?
Weird.
That's
crazy.
That's a boss move right there. So. In court, a DNA analyst placed him at the scenes of all of the murders. He was found guilty of Charlotte Pace and Geraldine DeSoto, and he was sentenced to life in prison for DeSoto's murder. And for Charlotte Pace, he was sentenced to death, and he was sent to Angola, where in a few years he would get a new neighbor, Mr. Potato himself, Ronald J. Dominique. My old buddy.
Do they have a special serial killer ward?
I don't know, but I mean, I don't know if Ron Dominique is in charge of the putting the pepper in the mashed potatoes.
I'll tell you how boring life is in Louisiana. In my senior year in high school, we took a field trip to Angola. So
Oh
yeah,
wow.
let's go to the state penitentiary. It was interesting though. The farm. They
Yeah.
had an A&E, I think, had a really good doc or little show about Angola. You probably can find it. I think it's titled The Farm. It's from back 20 something years ago because I watched it in Pennsylvania. Um, and I've actually flown over it. It's pretty cool. You look down, it's right there on the Mississippi River. You got Tunica Hills, and really they have like the main gate guarded, but their boundaries are the Tunica Woods and the Mississippi River, and no one wants to go through Tunica Woods, and no one wants to go in the Mississippi River.
That's funny. But I mean, I said earlier that I wanted to like if I ever cover Eileen Warnos, I want to go to her bar. If I ever cover Ted Bundy, which I have no plans on covering him anytime soon, ever, if ever. But if
You
I
want to
ever
go stay a week at a sorority house?
no, I want to I want to go to Stark, um Rayford, Florida State Penitentiary where he was executed, and I want to
Where old
set
Sporky got him?
yeah, I want to set up in the room where old Sparky is and film and record it there.
That would be cool.
That would be awesome. But they wouldn't let me. I'm sure they wouldn't let me
I
bring beer in there though.
Yeah, I doubt they would let you do that.
But hey, I would still do it. That's like 2.5 hours from me. Maybe a little bit, maybe 3 hours, but no, about 2.5 hours from me. But but I think that would be good just for aesthetics purposes. You got the
Oh,
old
absolutely.
banner up in the background in a dark, grungy room. Maybe have like old Sparky right there in the side view of the camera.
Do they still use old Sparky?
Old Sparky is waiting. Old Sparky is still functional. He just if a inmate wants to request to be electrocuted, they will. So that they'll do it. But so old Sparky is just sitting there waiting, just waiting patiently.
Didn't he catch someone's hair on fire or head on fire one time?
That was the Green Mile movie.
Okay. Where all the butterflies came.
Yeah. So, January 21st, 2016, Derrick Todd Lee died of heart disease at 47 years old. And he's still a cautionary tale at LSU, much like Danny Rolling is at UF and Ted Bundy is at Florida State. So, um, but that's it. That's what I got.
Well, you ended on a happy note.
Yeah. Anytime one of these pukes dies or whatever. But, um,
What a turd.
yeah, I mean, God, thanks for suggesting that one to me. I mean, I was aware of him, sure, and I knew that there was two serial killers operating at the same time in Baton Rouge, and that's like the only place that's happened other than California. Um, so I was definitely interested, and the more I started putting these notes together and everything, I was just like, whoa.
See, ain't lasted everything.
Huh?
I said, Louisiana ain't lasted everything. Education. We got the serial killers right up there with California.
Hey, we got Florida and Louisiana representing right here. But I don't.
Is it,
Are there any others? Well, Ed Kemper stalked college campuses, but I can't think of any others. And it's just like when anything. Somebody asked me, "Oh, what songs do you know?" A bunch of them, and I just draw a complete blank. And it's the same thing here. I'm sure that there have been other serial killers other than like um, Ed Kemper, Derrick Todd Lee, Ted Bundy, and Danny Rolling that stalked college campuses. I'm sure there's a lot more.
oh, absolutely. That's where, again, they call it like the freshman year, they call it like the red zone. It's when a female's like most vulnerable when they go off to college because they've never been by themselves.
Right.
They're trusting everything's been, rainbows and sunshine. And they don't realize that there are people out there that don't have their best intentions at hand.
Right. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, those guys, I mean, I'm just curious because I don't know. I've never been really close to Florida State. I mean, I've been to Tallahassee 100 times, but I've never actually been close to the Florida State campus. However, in at University of Florida, your arch rival, the
I think that's Bama. Oh, speaking, the Dolphins are about to come a little bit.
yeah,
Do you watch the broadcast or do you watch Peyton and Eli? I love Peyton and Eli.
um, I I I have seen Peyton and Eli a couple times, and I love it. But for a Dolphins game, I'm just gonna have to watch the regular broadcast. I'm gonna be more focused on the game than what the announcers are saying. But Peyton and Eli, that is pure gold. I freaking love that.
I'll tell you what else is really good to watch, and hopefully they'll do it again. Is when the college football playoff, the national, they have what's called the coaches room, and they have like 4 or 5 coaches sitting in there, kind of like, oh yeah, you know what, they're sitting in motion. The safety's going with them. They're in man. Okay, they're going to run a draw, and I mean, sure enough, they run the draw. It's the coaches in there just talking and reacting on what they're watching. If you're really into football and you know football, that is really good.
I would like to see like Tony Romo sit in on a Peyton and Eli episode and just like collab with him because he's really good as a broadcaster.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, has he been again? I don't recall seeing him, but yeah. But Romo knows. I mean, even I was at an LSU Arkansas game one time, and LSU was winning, and they were kind of like in the shotgun, and they just kept running this dive off the right hand side, and it looked like a read. The quarterback could pull it and run if he wanted to, and Arkansas couldn't stop it. They were getting 7, 8 yards of pop. Right,
Hmm.
I'm watching it, and all of a sudden they were running the same play again, and they sent a linebacker blitz, and they 8 yards, they got 2 yards. And so I announced to the crowd that was around me in the south end zone of Tiger Stadium, I said, he's about to pull it. He's about to pull it. And sure enough, they ran the exact same play. Arkansas ran the exact same blitz that brought that linebacker from where it was at into the gap, which to the hole. And right then, Jordan Jefferson, he pulled it and he ran 50 yards for a touchdown. And it's just, if you know what you're looking for, which I don't know what I'm looking at anymore when it comes to college football because there's so many different run pass options
Yeah.
and all this stuff. But that was Les Miles' offense back in 2011, and I'm down with Les Miles' offense in 2011. And so I knew what I was looking for. I knew what I was looking at. But it's so great to see all those coaches in there. They're knowing exactly what the other team's going to run. And Deion Sanders said it best. They were talking about Michigan stealing signals. And Deion said, you know what? He goes, when I played for the Cowboys, they knew Emmett was getting the ball. They knew Troy Aikman was going to throw it to Michael Irvin, and they knew that they were going to throw it to the tight end. He's like, knowing it's one thing, stopping it is another.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to make a prediction.
It's like the Titans players are going to know that Tua Tagovailoa is going to throw the ball to Tyreek Hill. Stop him.
That was my prediction.
Yeah.
My prediction was going to be Tua's going to throw it deep to Tyreek Hill.
Well, that happens about 3 or 4 times a game.
Yeah. Good luck stopping it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the freaking the Chiefs lost yesterday, and God, what a fucking whiny little bitch Patrick Mahomes is. The guy was clearly.
My mother would be mad at that. She loves her some Mahomes.
Well, I did too until yesterday. I mean, he's like, the receiver was clearly lined up in his foot was blocking the ref's view of the ball. That's how offsides he was. They threw the flag like right at the snap. So all the spectacular shit that happened after that didn't even matter from that point. And he's crying like a baby, like, what? You're calling against us for what? How dare you? It sounds like Greta Thunberg up there, bitching about a flag. How dare you? How dare you?
All right.
And
All right. So my opinion, all right, is how much does Mahomes get paid? More than $500 million.
yeah,
That's what his contract's for. You know
about
what? If Mahomes to get upset over the right call, um, he'll do it. I think the NFL is a show. It's a TV show. It's entertainment.
yeah, but that was a legit call, though. I mean, it just
That
like
was a legit call.
the refs this year have been like getting so much wrong. It's like worse than it's ever been. But that was a freaking legit call. But a lot of the bad calls that are non-calls and everything benefit the Chiefs all year long. And then he wants to bitch and whine because they called one legitimately for once and it didn't benefit the Chiefs.
No, it was a legit. He lined up all sides. Right before we got on, I talked to my brother, and he said that 5 other times that receiver lined up in the exact same spot, in the exact same location, like directly on the ball, and they didn't call it. Then again, they didn't know what a spectacular play, one of the best plays in the history of the NFL
I know.
was going to get called back, but it just happened. Like I said, I
But
think
the flag was thrown right at the snap. So it's just like it wasn't like it changed anything. The play was over for offensive offsides. It stops. There's no free play or anything like that, like there is on the defensive offsides.
well, in that flag may have actually been what made Kelsey throw the ball backwards because he may have thought he had a free play because maybe he thought the other team was offsides. You know what I'm saying?
Could be.
Very often,
Well,
very rarely
that makes sense.
they call offensive offsides. So Kelsey may have thought he had a free play. That's why he was able to do that. Whereas if he didn't think he had a free play, he would have never thrown that ball.
Right. But that was yeah. I don't know. But hey,
I think it was
I'm
part of the
good.
show.
I'm good.
You gotta,
We win tonight. We are sitting at 10-3, tied with the Ravens at 10-3. Tied with and on the NFC side, you've got the 49ers, and the Cowboys are also at 10-3. So there's 4 teams at 10-3.
and the Eagles, right? The Eagles are 10-3.
Didn't they drop to 10-4? No, they're 10-3 as
They
well.
lost
Yeah.
to the Jets, Niners, and the Cowboys.
Right. But anyway, well, thanks for coming on. I mean, yeah, definitely let me know about next week. I mean, just like the sooner the better, so I can start writing the notes if we're going to cover Gillis like for the next episode. I'd like to because it would make sense to have the 2 Baton Rouge back to back.
Okay, like I said, I'll look to see what I got going on, and I'll let you know.
Okay, but definitely, thanks for coming on again. I definitely I hope you're at CrimeCon because I want to have I want to have some drinks and talk football with you.
All right, let's we'll see. We'll see.
So, anyway, check out our social media and all that stuff. Give us a like and a review and all that stuff. All that good stuff. Tell a friend. If you like us, tell a friend. If you hate us, tell an enemy. Haven't said that in a while. And definitely, look at, we're gonna link Jody's website in this. Definitely check that out. Buy his book. He's the pleasure to have you on, brother, and I can't wait to have you on again. Hopefully sooner rather than later.
All right. Well, it was fun.
Yes, sir. All right, and until next.
Which is a terrible way to describe a crimes killers, cults, and beer. But
it's
I mean,
the beer that makes it fun. It's the beer that makes it fun. But I mean, you have to have you. I don't know. You have to be able to laugh at these pukes. I mean, I couldn't see myself being one of these podcast hosts that just like sits there and just rattles off the facts without any commentary on it or anything like that. If somebody asked me to do that, I wouldn't be able to do it unless they wanted to pay me a lot of money. And nobody's gonna pay a lot of money for me to sit down and, as tongue-tied as I get.
Anyway, well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, and we will talk to you soon. And until next week, later.
Goodbye.
And if you're still listening, thank you for listening to the very end of the episode. And I just got to throw this in there. Yes, I know the Dolphins blew a huge lead, a big lead, and lost in like the last 3 minutes of the game. I know. Yes, I know. Okay, don't come at me. Anyway, we'll see you next week.